Our next guest is someone who is I would hope that everybody who listens to our show knows who she is, and if not, you're going to find out more about her. We do post a lot of her YouTube videos on our website, and do as much as we can to bring attention to the wonderful work that Kerry has been doing over the last several years. And it's been a really interesting ride. I'm sure for her and for me, as anybody who does this type of work. And I'm just so glad to have her here to share her version and her experiences with us today. We have from Project Camelot, Kerry Cassidy. Welcome, Kerry. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi there.
Hi, Kerry. Well, again, we're very glad to have you here today. And I was hoping that perhaps we could start the discussion by sharing with our audience a little bit about Project Camelot and the work that you guys have been doing over the last several years to get the ball rolling. Is that okay?
No problem. Absolutely. So did you want me to just sort of launch into that, or did you want to ask me any more specific of a question?
We'll get more specific, but can you just give us a general idea for our listeners what Project Camelot is and the work that you've been doing?
Okay, fine. We are a website that specializes on whistleblowers from Black projects, testimony from them, and so you could say we're a WikiLeaks for Black projects, I guess you could say. We also deal with people who are researchers, authors, scientists, engineers, anyone who has, who basically wants to leak information about what's really going on in the beneath the matrix in our lives. And so we've been reporting on that for about 5.5 years. We are most known for our whistleblowers from Black projects and from the testimony that they've given us. The way we started was I was a frustrated filmmaker. I'd hit a glass ceiling and basically decided to go out and make my own UFO documentary. At that time, I interviewed what was the person who was going to become my partner in Camelot, Bill Ryan. He's English, by the way, and so for those of you that don't know. So I interviewed him as part of what he was working on at the time as a webmaster for the Serpo project, which was a human-alien exchange program that was conducted sometime in the 1960s. There was a controlled leak by way of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, to a news group run by a guy named Victor Martinez. And those communiques went out on a regular basis in the early, let's see, it was around October, November of 2005. And so in 2006, at the UFO Laughlin conference, I interviewed Bill, and we just basically hit it off. I wasn't that enthusiastic about interviewing him, but I did it anyway because he was the only spokesperson, the only sort of human face that was available to talk about what was going on with these communications from a person that was calling themselves anonymous. Since then, there's been a tremendous amount of disinfo that's been released in those communiques. There were human-alien exchange programs, from what we understand, a number of them. Some of the information there that was released as part of Serpo is basically very clearly disinfo. Other of it may have grains of truth. Yeah. So that started us off when we met. As I say, when I interviewed him as part of my UFO documentary, and I was going around sort of guerrilla film style, interviewing speakers, asking them if they'd seen a UFO. And if you'd like to see the sort of fruits of that labor all those years ago, it is available on what we call the older Project Camelot library site. And you get there by going to projectcamelot.org, clicking on the Camelot library, and you'll see a link that's in red that says go to the old site here. And on the old site, it's under shorts. And a lot of people have, I don't think, ever even seen that footage, which it's actually a lot of fun. It's a short documentary. because what happened is my progress got interrupted because I ended up going to Tintagel in England, and Bill had agreed to show me around England, to show me the power places like Stonehenge. We went to one of the former homes of King Arthur, which is called Tintagel, and it's a very spectacular setting right next to the ocean, and that's where we created the idea for Project Camelot. And we decided to put our skill sets together. He was a webmaster and a writer, and I was a filmmaker and a writer. And we both wanted disclosure. We both wanted to get the truth out. We were both people that had researched for most of our lives, I guess, conspiracies, things beneath the matrix, things that most people don't follow. And we both had sort of a similar worldview, I guess you might say. And so it was really an amazing kind of meeting of the minds. And we created, as I said, Project Camelot right there and named it Project Camelot, basically as a nod to the utopian round table of King Arthur. And I had a lot of past life recall when we went to Tintagel, which sort of augmented all of that. And then at the same time, we also put the word project in front of it simply because that's what they do in black projects. They use the word project before a lot of their code names.
Yeah.
From that day, we didn't actually look back. We just went forward. We created the website. We started traveling the world, doing interviews. My mother had passed away, and I had a small inheritance, so that financed us for the first 2 years of operation. After that, we started asking for donations, and we had a huge following, and we had a lot of success. And even to this day, I continue doing interviews, although I don't travel quite as much, simply because the downturn of the economy and the things. We still get donations, and I am having a big, basically a conference for all the Camelot whistleblowers, and it's an amazing lineup in September 23rd, 24th, and 25th of this month, and coming really very, very soon.
Yeah.
And so I encourage everyone to come down and meet the whistleblowers, listen to the testimony, and have a lot of fun because it's an amazing event.
It definitely looks like a wonderful, wonderful event, and I wish I would have known a little sooner, and I would have been there myself.
Where's it being held?
It's being held in Irvine, California, which is basically the best deal we could get for a venue in the greater Los Angeles area. So it's at the Irvine Hilton, and we have a discount on rooms, and basically, we conduct the whole conference. It'll start on a Friday at 6:30 p.m., and we have George Norrie from Coast to Coast coming down, interviewing the speakers, or not interviewing them, but introducing them. And then there's a Meet the Speakers party, and we'll be having live music later that evening. So, and also Duncan O'Finian, our super soldier witness, will be doing a speaking event in the very early part of the evening, introducing a mystery guest who has never come forward. That should be quite fascinating. And then on all day Saturday from say 8:30 in the morning until 12 midnight, we'll be going strong with speakers all day long, and then a panel discussion in the evening, and then again some probably live music very late, around 10 or 11 o'clock at night if possible, and then all day Sunday. So for the entire event, it's $200 for all 3 days, and we will be doing a live streaming as well around the world, and we're working on getting that organized at this moment for the people that can't make it. But we are encouraging if you're familiar with Bangladesh or Live Aid, we're actually trying to create an event that will happen simultaneously worldwide with streaming events where people can come down for half price, watch our live event, and also network in their local communities.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. That's fantastic. Great, wow. Kerry.
Yeah, so we're hoping that as a grassroots effort that will really take off, and we just want to create this new way of holding events, and I think it's going to work. I think it should be very exciting.
Absolutely, it sounds like you're definitely on the right track. I love the concept. I look forward to watching it myself. Is the event going to be streamed on your live stream channel?
Well, the live stream channel has been hugely problematic. First of all, they charged me a lot of money, and then I went to free, and that was all good. They refunded my money for that, the month or whatever. And then I don't know, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, so then they forgot that they refunded my money, and then they said I didn't pay. And it's just been, but actually this happened right around the time when I interviewed Dutch Sense. Right after my interview, they shut down my channel. Oh. So you could say it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
It's shut down now, even though I've contacted their PayPal. I had to contact their PayPal for them because I didn't pay through PayPal. I paid through American Express. And everything was fine at my end, but apparently they still haven't opened my channel to my knowledge. So I had to open another channel, which would only allow 50 simultaneous views.
Oh, geez.
And if you know Project Camelot, you'll know that there's a lot more audience out there for what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm now talking to a company called Indigo TV. They're also called the Indigo TV platform. And they are basically in talks with us to try to get our situation to happen live through them and using what's called, well, at least for my I do these video conferences online as well. I did one on LNN, as many people will know.
Yes.
We charge a very small amount. That one was a 5-hour conference with Richard C. Hoagland, Andy Lloyd, who wrote a book called Dark Star on the Brown Dwarf, and Keith Hunter, and Joseph Farrell, and Carl Johan Kalaman as well.
Oh, wonderful.
And talking about the Mayan calendar and LNN and what was going on in terms of this fall. So that's a fascinating conference. It's available on our website. But at any rate, that I do those as well. So I've got several things in the pipeline, if you will, and I'm waiting for the Indigo TV people to sort of work with me. Today's a holiday in the United States, Labor Day, and therefore we're sort of slow getting things off the ground. But I think in the next few days we should have an announcement and be able to go live. I've got Scott Stevens, who is a person who's an expert on weather wars, who's going to come on live with me in one of those formats to talk about not only their manufacture of ormus, which is a white gold that can enhance your psychic abilities as well as your ability to meditate, etc., and has various health benefits, and also talking about consciousness and the weather wars side of things. He was a full-blown weatherman at one point. He's gone down the road of investigating all kinds of things to do with chemtrails, etc.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. What's his name again?
His name is Scott Stevens.
Scott Stevens. Okay, I wanted to know if I recognize the name.
He has a website. I believe his website, I believe, is called weatherwars.com. But it's been a while since I've been there. So
okay.
Yeah.
Kerry, you brought up a topic that I wanted to talk to you about while we had you, and it's a little sooner than I wanted to, but now that we brought it up, I want to discuss or ask you. There's been a lot of posting over the last several days about LNN's destruction.
That's the survey. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was trying to find the Weather Wars website. I have no idea where I landed.
That's quite all right.
I have it right here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Trevor. Will you post that in the chat room?
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
great.
Kerry, what is your take on this whole idea that LNN has been destroyed or that it was diverted by a nuclear missile? Have you kind of wrapped your head around this latest topic as far as LNN the last few days?
Yes. In fact, I'm constantly in talks with various whistleblowers and contacts about this subject. And, in fact, I had a long conversation with Richard Hoagland just yesterday, I think it was. Actually, maybe it was the day before. It's becoming a haze. There's so much going on. But at any rate, Richard Hoagland insists that it's not been broken up, and he says that the trajectory is accurate because people are seeing it in their telescopes. He says that what was viewed as a hit or an explosion was on the comet was in fact a refraction in the telescope. And he says it's a common occurrence. There's another video. I actually posted the link on my website, on my blog, so you can go there and take a look and see what you think. It's possible both things are going on. In other words, the refraction as well as something happening to this supposed comet. So I don't know where we're at with it because I'm getting conflicting testimony. What I am doing is posting the testimony I am getting on my blog, so you can go there for the update. The most recent information is a whistleblower who, what seems to have happened is either it's the account that I was dealing with, another whistleblower who had very good information and was very solid, seems to have been replaced by either a tag team in a group of military white hats that are related but are not the same guy, have started to feed me information through this channel, or it has been hacked. And we had a particularly unique way of communicating, and this. So all I can say is that somehow the information coming through is in some cases suspect. In other cases, it appears to be fairly legitimate. And so I have a sort of a mixture going on with that, and it takes a lot of analysis to go point by point and take a look at what the information is coming through. Bottom line, and I just posted this on my blog yesterday, is this reference to a group of ETs called Kerrylians, who supposedly were the ones responsible for shooting the pulse, or whatever you want to call it, at LNN. And in the background here, I'm getting an incoming call that hopefully won't disturb this radio show, and I'll just let it go to voicemail. Okay. So, although, you never know, I hate not taking calls because it could be a whistleblower, and that can always be valuable information. But I was told never to release that name, only what happened was I had seen this video earlier and actually didn't remember the name of the race, and then a friend sent it to me yesterday. And when I watched it, they actually are reporting channeled information from this group, or about this group called the Kerrylians. I'm not sure how you say it, Kerrylians. At any rate, so this information that this whistleblower was telling me never to release is already on a video on YouTube and has been there for, and is channeled information. What was fascinating, and I put on my blog, is that the so-called channeled information cloaks in a bunch of sort of verbiage what was actually, how the comet was being dealt with. If you take as legitimate the testimony from the whistleblower said that the Kerrylians, there was a pulse sent and that it split the comet in half. Mm-hmm. One half didn't have to be dealt with at any rate. It's no longer important. The other half would go on a trajectory headed towards towards the Earth and the Moon, and at some point might have to be hit again. That would throw it off its sort of plotted trajectory that was reported on JPL and then picked up around the world, and also reported by Richard Hoagland very carefully on our LNN conference, and is something that he is basically tracking point by point, because there are some places of crossing that are particularly significant, like on September 11th, like on the 26th of September, that where it will be, I guess, in between the Earth and the Sun, and then afterwards in the month of October, and then again in November. Points the odds of it following those points without being guided are, something like 1,000,000,000 to 1. And, he's being a scientist, he works this sort of thing out. So there seems to be some validity to what Richard Hoagland has come up with. However, and this is where, because I had whistleblowers coming out with me with conflicting information, it's actually fascinating to try to compare and contrast and figure out what's true and what's not when you get this kind of a game going, if you will. Sometimes it's not that difficult. Sometimes I get 3 sources coming from completely different direction, and they all say the same thing. When that happens, then there's a very high likelihood, in our view, in the view of Camelot, that there's something to whatever they're saying, right? Yeah. Then you couldn't necessarily take it to the bank, but you could definitely say that there might be something up and that it's worthwhile to investigate further. In this case, what you get is a tremendous groundswell of people on YouTube with very limited information, but they are reporting a breakup of the comet. And they're showing it on videos, and they think they've got the real story. Then I also have a very recent piece of information from a source, a trusted source, that is telling me there is now a big to-do about another comet that is close by the trajectory of Elenin. And the name of the comet is, I've written it down, but it's something like Goddard. And Gordon, it's named after a man named something like Gordon Goddard, something like that. And actually I have to pull up my notes here. I can spell it for people if I can find where the information is. But I'll come back to that. Yeah. At any rate, what he's saying is that it's actually there and maybe been mistaken for Elenin at this point, or for a piece of Elenin. So the plot thickens, and all this kind of craziness is going on where people are being misled. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we on the outside, and there is a very, very substantial secret space program that involves the U.S., certainly, off-planet groups as well, Nazis that came over from Paperclip, as well as various governments that are in sort of cahoots with each other. The Chinese and the Russians and various other, depending on what level you're looking at, some conflicting space programs as well. And at any rate, there's a whole war going on, if you will. And how that war manifests, it may not be in the sense of conventional war. Mm-hmm. In other words, not necessarily a shoot-'em-up war, although that enters into it. So it's really perplexing, and I have to say that that's what they want. They want us to be confused. They want us to be out there sort of running around chasing our tails while they go about their business. Yeah. And this is very unfortunate. And so, I have an ongoing sort of discussion with Richard Hoagland as to the value of whistleblower or witness testimony. And I'm going to say right here and right now how valuable that is, and I'll tell you why. In my view, there will come a time when we are not necessarily able to rely, and even now, mm-hmm. can't rely on what we consider to be data. In other words, instruments can be faked and can be altered by electronic pulse weapons, etc. Yep. Data coming from in all kinds of ways, electronically, however you want to look at it, can also be altered. Photos can be faked, and so it goes. Mm-hmm. But what happens also in the event of any kind of disaster, ultimately what happens here on the planet Earth is that humans are a library unto themselves. In other words, we're not just a genetic library in our DNA, but we are a library of information, of the history of our own humanity, and we contain that library. So going to the source, which is each and every person that has participated, for example, in something like a secret space program, and then piecing that story together out of testimony is very, very valuable. And it may be the best information we have. The difference here is that people are so conditioned to look at the printed word and think it's the truth. Mm-hmm. that they're easily deceived, and that goes for visuals as well, pictures. And so, just to give you an example, we have a whistleblower that has been vetted by another group who trusts that source implicitly, that's deep inside NASA, who says that they were responsible for the original plotting of Elenin's trajectory, and that they published that through JPL or NASA, and then later came back and said that it was wrong, that they put out the wrong data. Why they did this, I have yet to find out. The fact that they wouldn't come forward and acknowledge that it was wrong is another issue. Hoagland says to me, well, it can't be wrong because if everyone's pointing, even amateur, astronomers, of which I guess there are many now, who aren't even that amateur, are pointing their telescopes at a certain part of the sky and seeing Elenin in the place where it's predicted to be, then in essence, that must be the right trajectory. If you take into account what is possible through the technology, which some of our whistleblowers says is as much as 10,000 years ahead, but maybe even if you looked at it in several hundred years ahead, then you're talking about a technology that can do things that we probably can hardly dream of. And then that's not even bringing into account the off-world, abilities of the various ET races who have been around far longer than us, who have the ability to tug things like the moon and put it into place in orbit around our planet, to take and shoot meteors that are incoming so that they don't hit the Earth, and so on. So you're talking about races of beings who have amazing capabilities. Whether they choose to interfere is another matter, and that can be, a matter for discussion.
Now, speaking of the off-world entities and the off-world civilizations that could be helping us and or hindering us, Kerry, it's, I guess, for lack of a better term, it's general knowledge, for lack of a better term, again, I'm saying that perhaps we're being manipulated on the negative aspect through the Anunnaki. What have your witnesses spoken in reference to this particular situation?
Well, yes. Basically, there's lots of testimony on Camelot about this. First of all, Michael Tellinger's work, and he's basically just following in the footsteps in some ways of Zecharia Sitchin, and then expanding the paradigm simply because he's gone to a place in South Africa that he believes is what is referenced in the Sumerian tablets as the Deep Abzu, and he has investigated this very amazing stone circle on the side of a cliff called Adam's Calendar. And then there are a number of millions of what are called stone circles that have amazing energy on the hillsides and mountains around in South Africa and Zimbabwe, and I believe even going through another country nearby. But at any rate, I've just completed a documentary on this subject with Michael Tellinger, and you can get to it by clicking on the front page of Camelot. Again, you can type in projectcamelot.org, or you can type in projectcamelotportal.com. So there are two ways to get there. They arrive at the same place. There's a photograph, and all you do is click the photograph, and you'll get to the page and be able to watch the video in the embedded in the page. It's on YouTube, or just click over to YouTube and watch it there. It's a 2-hour feature-length documentary all about Adam's Calendar, which is said to be, even by Credo Mutwa, the Zulu shaman, who many people will be familiar with, who validated the fact that this was the site of the supposed creation of human as we know them, supposedly. Now, Ashyanuddin has the history of humanity that goes far, far back before this. But there is no doubt that at a certain juncture in our history, the Anunnaki came. They dealt with probably Neanderthal for one thing, and I guess maybe other versions of humanity, and then they mix their own DNA with it. They also found that initially we were too intelligent, and so they dumbed down our DNA, and that's where you get the junk DNA. It is now being activated, though, that this DNA that is supposedly junk is now being activated not only by ourselves through meditation, etc., and with the children who are coming and being incarnated in at this time with, for example, 3 strands active or more.
Yeah.
But which you have to understand that we have a way of stimulating each other, so that if we have incoming beings with 3-strand DNA, they are going to be triggering the activation in the people around them. And on top of that, we have what is in essence a super wave coming towards the Earth. That we had testimony from one of our witnesses, first of all, to the effect of the super wave, which is by courtesy of Paul Laviolette and his work as a scientist. And we flew to Greece to interview him in person. And he is considered by some to be something of the Albert Einstein of our period. And he talked about a super wave. Now, he didn't say when it would arrive. However, we have another witness, Jake Simpson, who talked about our secret space program being aware of the super wave, going out using superluminal travel beyond the edges of our solar system, and actually seeing the wave, using instruments, being able to detect the wave coming towards us at that time, which was 5 to 10 years ago. And so at this moment, the evidence is that not only were we going through this sort of cyclical change, which involves the incoming of a brown dwarf with a mini solar system, in essence, of planets circulating it, which is being documented repeatedly by various whistleblower testimony, including Andy Lloyd, who studied it in depth scientifically for 10 years and wrote a book called Dark Star, who I also interviewed. So what you have is a changing of consciousness as a result of all of this. But yes, the Anunnaki originally apparently did rule this planet for a time, for many thousands of years, were instrumental in dumbing down our DNA. Apparently there were 2 sides, as everyone knows the story, or most people at this point, that Zachariah Sitchin talks about, which is 2 brothers, Enki and Enlil, and the Enki side being the more positive side, the Enlil side being the more service to self side. Enlil was not happy with the creation of, or the sort of augmenting of humanity with the Anunnaki DNA, and so he basically insisted on a dumbing down version so that we would be slaves and just useful slaves to his to the finding of gold and taking the gold off the planet. Something that is still going on to this day, according to our several whistleblower testimonies, by the way.
Yeah, actually, Kerry, let me ask you a question about the story of Enki and Enlil. How do we say that? Did I say that right? Enlil?
Enki and Enlil, yes.
I recognize those names from my teens, actually, from the book, the Necronomicon. Is the Necronomicon mythology similar to what we're talking about here with Enki and Enlil? Or are you familiar with the Necronomicon text?
Yeah, I think that I am, but it's kind of hazy. I don't remember exactly what was in there, but I remember the book. I remember hearing about the book. I don't know if I've ever read it. There's another book out with a similar name, so I don't want to say I've read it if I haven't. So
right. It's I believe well, it's very popular among the pagan circles that are involved in Babylonian magic and whatnot. And the only reason why I brought it up is because the only reason why I recognize those names is from reading that book 20, 30 years ago. I think it was created by H.P. Lovecraft as a story, but it was taken very seriously by its readers. But that's why I'm asking if
it's a cult classic.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's also, if I know correctly, I believe it's also very hard to come by.
Oh, okay. Oh, darn! I shouldn't have thrown away my copy then.
I may be mistaken there, but that's what I recall.
Right, right. Because it's, I guess it's Sumerian magic is what it's considered. And I was just wondering if, I didn't know if you knew whether the story is the same in that book as it is of, scientifically speaking, archaeologically speaking.
I think I think it's basically borrowing from the Sumerian tablets, the story. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how accurately it depicts it, because I don't think now when I realize that the actual source of what you're talking about, I don't think I've read that particular book, but I have heard a great deal about it.
Now, as far as our DNA is concerned, and we are hearing about wonderful, you know, the incarnation of wonderful crystal children, indigos, and whatnot, and emulating, or I wouldn't say emulating, but I think you used the word, or helping to evolve our DNA. Have we discovered where this is coming from? Is this I guess, are they conduits for the energy? Is that what it could be considered?
Well, if you're talking about, you know, what goes on in terms of being in other words, how do I explain this? If you have a being who is in this vicinity of other beings, and that being has, let's say, heightened DNA, a heightened aura, heightened frequency, that frequency will affect the other frequencies in the vicinity, and depending on the power of the being, will create the change in others and sort of act as a catalyst. And so many of us who have activated our own DNA, extra strands in our DNA through meditation, etc., through accessing some of the energies coming into the planet at this time. For example, Michael Tellinger and I joke on the documentary, but this is a very real phenomena, that if you go to these stone circles in South Africa, you basically get a charge like you wouldn't believe. And I can assure you that it basically has the power to change your energy signature. And then, of course, by doing that, you begin to change the DNA and the chemistry of your own body. So, I mean, you do that by just ingesting certain foods, over others, for example. So you have to understand how we're all part of this whole and how we can affect each other in this way. So by the same token, if you have a being that walks into a room full of people and they have more strands of DNA activated, they are going to stimulate several of the people in the room, if not all of them. The heat signature in the room will probably rise if this being is indeed as I say. You know, it's interesting because some of the people used to talk about John Lennon in that way. I don't know if you know that story, but it was written about, I guess, in Rolling Stone, I think, or I might have heard it on a radio show. But it was known among friends of John's that wherever he would show up, there would be, sort of a heightened sense of, and in some cases it comes across as you would consider it to be sort of a magnetism. We refer to it as that star quality. But there's also this energy signature that has to do with raising the heat in a room, literally, physically, and in the bodies around them. So some people that registers with in regard to like sexual energy, because it's Kundalini energy that's being transmitted. So that's how it's done.
Wow.
Okay, I think I've shocked everyone into silence.
I know.
I didn't mean to do that.
I was busy writing things down. I can't write as quick as you talk.
Okay. Well, I believe you're recording this, so I don't think you have to take notes.
Yeah, right? No, it's all good. It's all good. So the reality of it is that when we are saying that people are really changing the world just with their presence, with the fact that they have incarnated at this time, that they've chosen to be here to help elevate the consciousness of the planet, we're not really talking fluffy. We're talking energetic changes that are happening around the planet. And is that what you've, I guess, a synopsis of what perhaps you've experienced with the many people that you've spoken with?
Sure. I mean, we're doing it through multiple of ways. One of the ways is by talking about the truth. The truth resonates in the heart chakra, real truth. And you know it, and I know it, and everyone on the planet knows it when they hear it. Now, some people aren't conscious that they know the truth when they hear it, but believe me, it has a true resonance, and it has a power. And so what happens is what we do in Project Camelot, why we strive to find the truth, is because this will change the planet just by the very nature of exposing what is the truth.
Yeah.
So you don't actually have to go, sort of riot in the streets in order to create change on the planet. All you need to do is speak and know the truth. And revealing the truth, again, about the matrix, and getting people all around the world to recognize the truth is a very, very powerful consciousness changer. And so that's just what it is. And, you can witness this in your own life as you become resonant with things that are absolutely true. Your entire physicality changes. Your sense of who you are changes. You expand, if nothing else. Your mind expands. You begin to encounter more truth. In other words, getting one piece of truth tends to attract more other truth. And so it goes. And you become better and better at discerning what is true and what is not. And so that sort of exercise in discernment is something we're all taking part of on the planet here. And the more we resonate with truth, the greater sort of beauty that's going to manifest on our planet, and the less smog, the less earth changes are required, the less of all these kinds of negative sort of greetings, as David Wilcock would call them. And I also urge people, because, David Wilcock talks about consciousness and the hyperdimensional aspect of consciousness, as well as the scientific basis for consciousness. He's talking about it in his new book that's just come out. I'm going to give him a free plug here, called Source Field Investigations. And I actually want to say, because I'm not sure, I think he gives credit, but I have to say that he does owe a huge debt to the Camelot whistleblowers for his information, for some of his information. And I'm not going to name those names. I'm not sure whether he did, because I did get a copy of his book. I haven't read it yet. It's just come out. It is, I believe it's just coming out in the next couple of days.
Oh, nice.
For people to purchase on Amazon, etc. But at any rate, so there's that. He's going to be speaking at our conference and doing a book signing there. We've got also Nassim Haramein, who is becoming a very well-known individual who is talking about the nature of consciousness, the hyperdimensional nature of consciousness. And Richard Hoagland, in his own way, has also addressed this aspect. So we've got more and more investigations into the nature of what consciousness is all about, what we're really doing here on Earth, and what it means when we touch on and reach the truth in each other, and we share that. And we're taking the veil away here on the planet from, basically revealing the truth and exposing the lies. So that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you more, Kerry, and that brings me to my next question or topic for discussion is, what would you say? Okay, well, the reality of it is, for me and my experience in doing what I've been doing now for the past 5 years, it seems that my intention was to hopefully bring the truth movement, quote unquote, and the metaphysical consciousness movement, hopefully to some type of a balance and share the best of the both. However, I don't know if you've experienced this, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't, is that we seem to have a lot within the truth movement that are very angry, and rightly so, because they're outraged by what they're discovering, and as we discover the atrocities that are being done to humanity, of course there's going to be some outrage. And then we have the other aspect, the other extreme of, let's say, the metaphysical, New Age, for lack of a better term, consciousness movement of, oh, well, if you focus on the negativity, you're going to create more negativity. Hopefully I'm doing a good job of trying to bring a balance of both to try to expose the truth as well as enhancing the consciousness of the planet. But it seems that you seem to have mastered it very well. I think you've done a wonderful, wonderful job of presenting information as information and letting people just digest it at their own pace, as well as, helping with the consciousness aspect to the planet. What, if you could, would you share with us basically what is your perception of maintaining balance in the atrocities that we're seeing, as we're saying, speaking the truth, seeing the outrageousness that is happening and the corruption of our planet leaders, the global criminal elite, for lack of a better term, and what is your feeling on that? How do we maintain that balance as everyday people, not people that run GIC or run Project Camelot, but the everyday fans and followers of our respective networks? What's the best way to maintain that balance of taking in the information, digesting it, and yet maintaining a higher vibration?
Well, it's a very good question, and I do understand it. However, it's interesting because I don't feel as conflicted about that as a lot of people apparently are. Yeah. And it's not like I don't understand the conflict. I just don't think it's a problem. But I'll address why. I think that in sort of, I guess this gets back to when I was a child. When I came into the world, I looked around and I saw the deception and the lies, and being sort of an intuitive, especially intuitives and intuitive children, tend to sort of tell the truth about their world and see the truth, and they begin to see the gap between what they're told, for example, by adults and what they see is true. And when you grow up with those kinds of eyes and you maintain that sort of perception through your life, and you become what I did, which was basically a rebel from the system, which is in essence a rebel from the matrix, from the early days of my life. I always questioned everything around me because I knew from the get-go that there were tons of lies and deception, not only in human behavior towards each other, but in the way they educated each other, et cetera, the way they relied on so-called authority figures to tell them how they feel. Whether they go to a doctor to get a reading on their health, or they go to a weatherman to find out what the weather is like, whatever it is. And I, as a young person, wouldn't take other people's points of view and internalize them. So I questioned constantly. And as anyone who's watched my videos will be aware that I continue to do that. So this was just a natural process. It wasn't something I planned necessarily, except perhaps on a soul level. So if you come into the world with that in mind, and you understand also I studied Eastern philosophy as a young person as well, and I studied it in such depth that and this is nothing that I was ever taught by anyone. I never followed a guru of any kind. I simply investigated what was going on in India, how these so-called gurus would link their chakras and supposedly reach enlightenment. I read about Buddha and Hermann Hesse, and his books, and I basically decided that if enlightenment was possible to achieve, that I would just simply do it. And so I actually did do that. I spent about 2 months when I was in my early 20s in New York City. I studied acting at night, and I would meditate all day long. And at one point, I even stopped going to work. And I had a situation in which I was able to sort of be house sitting somebody's loft in New York, and to this day, I was able to simply meditate constantly, and I was able to visualize and link my chakras, and I did have repeated and very powerful samadhi experiences. And that has basically kind of stood me well throughout my life. And so once you do that, once you become part of all that is, and you really see the matrix literally melt around you, very similar to the Matrix movie, it's just about like that in some ways. And, you know, it changes you. It changes your perception of reality. So speaking the truth is not negativity in my view. In fact, lying is negativity.
Yeah.
Supporting lies is negativity. Not revealing lies, keeping, in other words, staying silent while lies are taking place in front of your eyes is negativity to me. Whereas someone will say, well, actually, you know, if you actually tell the truth, you're being negative about what's really going on. And so now I have a huge echo. I guess I'm speaking too much truth here. And
so, no, we want more.
So anyway, it's all one. I don't see a huge split between what people call positive and negative. I do see a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
But I do see also that revealing the truth is really what it's all about. I mean, Christ said, you know, I come not in peace, I come to bring a sword. The sword is the sword of discernment. It's cutting through to understand the middle way, the yellow path, the truth, and being able to unite the opposites, if you will. It's if you know Gurdjieff, you know that it has to do with thesis, antithesis, and synthesis.
Yes.
You know, these are great teachers that have come our way that have talked about these very things that I'm talking about.
Absolutely, and that's the, well, you stated it so beautifully, as the reality of it is that once you have lifted yourself out of the illusion of the matrix, you understand that everything is one, and yes, there is polarity, yes, there is, you know, give and take, up and down, positive and negative, so to speak, but once we come to the understanding that it's kind of just, it's the universe being perfectly the universe, that we begin to feel a little bit more empowered. My comment on that is that perhaps those that are concerned that information is negative, it's more of a personal thing versus a universal reality, for lack of a better term. Because I can't help but well, a good example is we have the 9/11 10th anniversary coming up right now, and we know that the blogosphere is going to go crazy with 9/11 truth information. And for those that don't want to hear it or are really made to feel uncomfortable by the fact that their government may have lied to them or whatnot, that's for me perhaps a more of a personal journey that needs to be well, I don't want to say conquered, but needs to be experienced, going through that journey of understanding that your government isn't always going to tell the truth. Whoa, what a surprise. You know, there are millions or maybe billions of people that still believe that everything their media or their government tells them is going to be the truth, just like you had said earlier, that discernment is really a part of this whole entire process. And with that, I can't help but want to ask you, what are in reference to when you say the matrix, I'm assuming that you're referring to the illusion that has been created by our power elite. Is that about right?
Well, I mean, we've all participated, but
yes,
it's been created over time, obviously, through history, through the beings that have lived before us, et cetera, through some of the lies that have been constantly fed and the propaganda that has been fed through our televisions, through our media, who serve the so-called power elite. And yes, I mean, there is a lie that says that that you need to live your life in certain ways. I mean, you know, there are plenty of religions that have sort of programmed people to live lives that are lies on many levels, because either they can't live up to what the religion tells them to live like, or and so they do certain things in secret and certain things in out in public, and they live a contradictory life in two ways. They have a split personality type of thing, or multiple personalities. There are so many illusions in our world. I mean, in a sense, if you get into a very sort of, I don't know, Zen-like position, you can view it all as Maya. Everything on the earth, everything that's manifested here is to some degree an illusion. Mm-hmm. It is a hologram that we live in. We create reality as we go. We agree to certain premises. And it's a very powerful argument to begin to understand literally the hyperdimensional aspect of what you're looking at. That this thing that we think is solid is not really solid. That it's made up of molecules that have space between them. That that you can actually go through walls once you understand that those molecules are not solid, and that you have the ability to basically dematerialize. In other words, in my view, humanity has unlimited potential. Mm-hmm. What we haven't done is realize it in the here and now. And so we can do things like walk through walls. We can do things that so-called ETs, because we are their lineage, we have their DNA, can do. It's simply that what stands in the way is our minds. That's what's interfering. That's what's creating this so-called sort of slower version of reality, which is the sort of 3D going into 4D. And more, we're in 4D and even 5D here in this reality. And in some ways, there is what seems to be a separating of the layers, such that what was 3D is becoming less dense, moving into 4D, and that we are also perceiving things coming from 4D much more so than we are actually paying attention to what used to be 3D. And that's a very interesting dynamic when you take your attention and you focus it elsewhere. And certain things become, it's not like they disappear so much as the priorities change. And what seems, it's kind of like, there's this famous saying, which I don't have it in hand, but it's something to it was like Hegel or somebody like that who wrote, that the force that lifts them up is greater than the force that holds them to the ground. And it was a poet. I don't know if it was Hegel or not, but it's a saying that I used to carry around, certain sayings, and it struck me as such a beautiful poetic way of saying it, because it is about he was talking about poets and artists and people that have this ability to sort of transcend their circumstances and why they had that ability. And basically it's like a force.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess for me as someone in our modern society, for lack of a better term, one of the greatest frustrations, and I'm sure many of us, maybe yourself included, many of us out there that are listening to this, have these frustrations of when is the planet going to wake up? When is everybody going to wake up? When are they going to put down the remote control and stop eating McDonald's and voting for the same two parties over and over again in the United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? It becomes, a lot of people get very frustrated, and what I'm finding, and I know I did in my earlier years when I first started doing this, of being so aggravated to the point where it was almost, I guess it's the same as a born-again person who has seen the light, and you just want to share it with everyone and shove it down their throat, and you get mad at them if they don't listen and whatnot. What would you say to our listeners, or I guess our listeners would be a good way, our members, that perhaps are really trying to push the awakening instead of allowing it to happen organically speaking? Is it fair to say it'd be better off if we didn't add negativity or call them sheeple, for lack of a better term. I'm sure we've heard that term before, but I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, Kerry, but I see it on Facebook all the time. People yelling at people for being sheeple and all this stuff. Right. And to me, that's kind of perpetuating the negative as far as vibration is concerned. What's your feeling on that?
I guess, I think that anger can be very constructive. So I'm not one of those people who says, oh, never get angry, it's all beautiful. I think that anger has its place. And especially when, in other words, you're crazy if you live in a society like we live in and you're not angry, in my view. Because how could you not be angry at people starving to death?
Yeah.
At the inequality that you see before you. If you're not angry on some level, especially when you first recognize this, certainly after a certain level, you can get into sort of a Zen place. But the bottom line is every once in a while, a good dose of anger can be it's like getting cold water sort of thrown in your face. It can really sort of wake you up and get you going. That's the way I see it. I don't think it's such a bad thing. Now, whether if it becomes a lifestyle, if it becomes your way of going through the world, that's another matter on a day-to-day basis. Because you need to mitigate these things like anger with understanding and love and so on and so forth, and a certain amount of intelligence, hopefully, and spiritual, insight and so on and so forth. But what I would say is that, do you have to pull along your brother? In other words, do you have to force them to see what you see? And I don't think it's possible to do that. I think in the case of Camelot, what we do is we simply put up the website. We had no idea whether people would like it, would ever come, or anything. We just simply did it because we were motivated and moved to do this. We basically went out and knocked on doors and we were allowed to enter. And interview people that we never thought we'd get through to. But what happens is you have to allow and live and let live. You must allow the other person their pace of development. And there are levels to which you can go. In other words, in what we're doing every day, we are changing the world around us. And we are, I would say, revolutionaries in that sense. But at the same time, as David Icke would acknowledge, it's not really useful necessarily to hit the streets, although at times it can be. So, I don't think you can say it's either or in any way. I think you have to embrace where you're at. I think you need to shine your light at this time more than ever. And just stand in your light. And I think that ultimately those lights will be seen and they will impact the world around them. And I don't think you need to force it on anyone. I think there are enough ways in which you can get the word out at this time and simply allow people to find you at their own pace. And if people want to, argument and interaction in that way, that too has a place.
Yeah.
There's a dynamic going on. Understanding can come through discourse, can come through one opposite point of view being compared or contrasted to another opposite point of view. This can be valuable. Having an argument with somebody, you can reach a higher ground. Yeah. Certainly you can get stalemated. Certainly feelings can be hurt, all this kind of thing. But it doesn't mean, I come from the world of art. I come from drama. I worked in Hollywood for 19 years. To this day, I still want to make sci-fi movies. I believe in human drama. I believe the interaction among us is what can create a better world, and so how that interaction manifests, in all its faces, I think is to be allowed. I think that, you have to draw the line certainly when it starts interfering with another person's freedoms. That's where it becomes an issue. And I would defend more or less to the death, anyone's right to say almost anything. Yeah. However, I would not defend their right to harm another being physically, or to interfere with another being's freedom to think and to act and to worship and do what they choose. As long as it isn't, again, interfering with another being. So this is a balance that we constantly have to deal with, Yeah. So.
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of the things I feel that perhaps is forgotten when we first are awakening, for lack of a better term, that we get so outraged that we can't understand why others aren't outraged, and perhaps we need to allow them to come to that outrage and in their own time, and allow them to go through their awakening at their own time. It seems that too many people are well, I don't want to say too many people. There are factions out there that, try to evangelize, for lack of a better term, and I think for me that would be a turnoff. Oh, what do you mean well, a good example, and forgive me for anybody out there that's listening that is a vegan, but a lot of vegangelize, for lack of a better term, and they get so mad at you when you eat meat, and don't you realize what that does, and this and that, and yes, and guess what? I'm slowly coming to that, but in my time, not 20 years ago when it was shoved down my throat, so to speak. And I feel that that's probably the best way to go about it, and I agree completely with you, Kerry. We need to have a little bit of both and allow everybody the freedom to come to this reality, or the reality of the illusion, for another term, is a way to look at it. In reference to this reality that is an illusion, I wanted to touch on this before we start talking about awake and aware. I wanted to ask you, Kerry, in reference to the Illuminati. We haven't even said that word yet, and I wanted to bring that up. We just posted a very interesting post recently on the GIC that someone had sent to me that was found on Craigslist, of all places. Someone posted this wonderful article on Craigslist, and we went ahead and posted it on GIC, and it basically describes and shows how the Illuminati would think, all the different things that perhaps they could be doing in reference to adding fluoride to the water, causing conflict among religions, all of these things that we all talk about in our circles in the consciousness, truth, awareness movement. And I wanted to hear your take on the Illuminati, Kerry. Is it an agenda? Are they actually structured, or are these just greedy people that happen to have the same thing in common?
Yes. I mean, a leading question. Well, actually, of course there's an agenda. And people that think there isn't an agenda are extremely naive in my view. And at Camelot, we're constantly sort of tracking down the agenda, trying to reveal that agenda, because basically based on the idea that a person that has foreknowledge of something is therefore prepared to deal with it and have their own freedom of choice in the face of it. And so consequently, the Georgia Guidestones are one sort of example of the agenda of the Illuminati, of the unified agenda of the Illuminati. The secret societies, the Bilderberg, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, these are not illusion. These are very wealthy families with agendas. And not only do they have their own agendas, but they've been augmented by their contracts and their deals that they've made with various off-planet races. So that's, the New World Order is an agenda. It is being rolled out. The so-called cement coffins that are being created at this time that a whistleblower was telling me about recently, the FEMA camps, the underground bases in preparation for something that we're not being told about, whistleblowers that tell me that the populist will not be warned in advance of any kind of truly cataclysmic event, that they will basically have to figure it out for themselves. And if they're too stupid to figure it out, this is one of the Illuminati philosophies, then they don't deserve to live. That's literally how they think. And their philosophies are written in many, many places. It really hidden in plain sight, so to speak, throughout the ages. And so, yes, absolutely there is an agenda.
And they seem to, one of the obvious, I guess, one of the obvious strongholds that they have would be the media. And I can't help but bring up the fact that, and someone just posted in the chat that I need to bring up, that they seem to be using Hollywood a lot as far as using movies to let you know what's happening before. I can't help but acknowledge the fact that I watched your conference in South Africa, and you spoke about the BP oil spill and how they showed that in the movie with Nicolas Cage. I forgot the name of the movie. But it just seems like that's one of many examples that they seem to be using, I guess, letting us know what's going to happen. Do you feel that has something to do with the Illuminati saying, okay, let's see who can figure this out?
Yes, it's one of the sort of, first of all, they base what they do on an occult sort of hidden knowledge premise that's come down through the ages. Some of which you could say, comes directly from so-called gods that referred to themselves as gods, that were in fact just Anunnaki or other beings who basically gave knowledge to man that became hidden, a lot of it, and known as occult knowledge, so to speak. But one of the premises is that the so-called Illuminati follow is the notion that they need to tell people what they're going to do before they do it. And that has that's a magical act. And a lot of what it goes on with the Illuminati, the people that know what they're doing, of course there are levels who participate in supporting the Illuminati, live their lives according to those precepts, and never really know it. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is the idea that you let someone know of something before you do it actually engages their awareness, and you can also enlist their conscious help by their recognition and by whether or not they are vulnerable to what you are saying. You can also instill fear, which gives you an opening or a foothold in that consciousness to then take your advantage, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So there's a spiritual dynamic, a spiritual war, if you will, going on, and these things they do have a purpose behind them.
And speaking of the spiritual war and the purpose behind a lot of the propaganda, that both positive and negative, I can't help but bring up the whole concept of 2012, Kerry. I know that you have spoken on the topic many times in the past, and I just wonder if you would be kind enough to share with us and remind us a little bit about what your concept is of the 2012 agenda. And is it changing? As more and more are awakening, do you find the outcome is going to be changing?
Well, yes. But at the same time, I believe that there are certain, let's say, things that we have agreed upon before we incarnated here that will transpire, that we will be a part of, certain large events, certain events that will be even allowed to happen, even by the so-called positive ETs that are here to protect us in certain ways and to protect the integrity of this experiment that you call humanity here on the planet at this time. And, we are spiritual beings having a material existence. So in the bottom line, at some point, we come onto the planet, incarnate at this time, and there's a so-called what they call an overpopulation, but what is in essence a sort of a thronging of spiritual beings who have chosen to be here at this time in order to educate themselves, in order to grow this idea of a humanity or a human that has the potential to sort of, if you will, resolve and evolve a collaboration of races. In other words, and this comes to some degree from some of the work of Ashiana Dean, who I was very struck by, and I will be going to India in the middle of October. They are financing my trip to India to accompany them in exchange for some advertising of their various upcoming, projects and seminars and things. But
Wonderful.
basically, she was talking about how interesting it is that these various ET races came down and genetically engineered us in such a way that they put their genes into us. And what they were doing in essence was creating a being or a group of beings here on the planet or teams on the ground that would then interact with each other and see whether these races who for eons have not been able to get along and who have been fighting wars, interstellar wars, would be able to finally come to terms in human bodies where they share the same planet, they breathe the same air, and their well-being is dependent upon this spaceship Earth that we call it. And this is the grand experiment operating here. And so basically that's what I would say. I mean, I think that's what's going on in 2012. I think that's going on beyond 2012. I don't think we're limited to a day or a year. I know that Carl Johan Kalaman is talking about October 28th as being the true end of the Mayan calendar. Many people are talking, many whistleblowers, many people coming forward are talking about November of this year, that is 2011, as having very significant dates in it and possibly even cataclysmic events going to transpire during that time. There is the downturn in the economy, and even today, if you want to look at the news, the European stocks sort of hit bottom. There are a lot of simultaneous things happening to us and in us and with us at this time. We elected to come at this time and to be part of all of this incredible drama. And so what I would say about 2012 is it's certainly not the end of the world in my view. There is a transition going on. It's ongoing, though. It started. We're part of it. It's happening right now. Some beings have chosen to leave at this time. You'll see a lot of people passing on, a lot of even animals, and from what I understand, passing on. Some are said to be going to a fifth dimensional Earth. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but it may be. I know that we have multiple timelines operating simultaneously. Reality is not what we think it is. It's far more complex and multifaceted.
Absolutely. And on that note, I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit further on your information that you have gathered over the years in reference to the otherworldly societies and beings that are affecting the Illuminati, for lack of a better term, guiding them. I can't help but think of the old Faustian deals with the devil, so to speak, for some of these Rothschilds and Rockefellers and whatnot. And it just seems that I guess in my connecting the dots, they're basically doing it with transdimensional entities that are perhaps otherworldly. And I know that you have spoken with many whistleblowers, including our friend Aaron McCullum, who talks about the Gulf of Aden and the Stargate. I'm sure you've spoken to more people than Aaron on this topic. And what has been your synopsis of this? Is there? You said there was a war or a battle going on otherworldly, and I don't think a lot of people seem to grasp this. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the otherworldly cultures that could be affecting this particular planet?
Well, it's as I said, it's ET beings. In other words, literally beings that inhabit various dimensions. We call them ETs. They are other races of beings call them what you will. Some of them are visiting our planet at this time. They are affecting our reality in doing so. They have visited throughout our history, so you've got that aspect. You have also transdimensional beings that are also non-physical. You have, negatively oriented. You could call them demons if you want. There's positive oriented demons or angels, what people like to call angels. They can be negative angels. So there are disembodied souls and entities. I mean, this is a huge cornucopia, I guess, of consciousnesses interacting, that are all coming from source or a manifestation of source in all of its wondrous ways. And so as they impact us, as we deal in everyday life, we're dealing with these entities. They can possess people. They can, they can also, people that are alive can walk out of their bodies and create havoc elsewhere. It's a huge sort of mixture of things. How they're affecting this reality and how they're affecting the Illuminati, for example, that's probably too complex a subject to even begin to discuss. All I can say is they're affecting those people just as they're affecting you and the people listening and me and all of us. We swim in a soup of beings and consciousnesses on all levels, and we interact with them on all levels. And we are, multidimensional individuals, entities, whatever you want to call us. We exist, our higher selves on six dimensions and above, simultaneously with this incarnation. If you believe some of the occult information out there, there are 12 incarnations of any one person at any given time. And some of us are unifying our various dimensional selves at this time. Some of us are on a journey out of this dimension and into others. And we won't be back at this level of incarnation. Won't be going around the wheels, as it's said. So I'm not sure how to answer your question other than sort of in that general a way. I can say that there have been pacts with governments, such as Eisenhower talked about. Certainly the reptilians have been doing business with the Illuminati, with the Vatican. You can get our interview with Leo Zagami and get testimony in that regard. There are lots of different deals being made between races at this time. Deals for technology, deals for off-planet rescue, deals for off-planet civilizations that they want to create, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And that's actually exactly what I was asking for. You've definitely given us a perspective on the reality of it. I feel that a lot of people perhaps look at it more poetically, like, oh, they're dealing with spirit. No, these are entities they are literally in talks with, making deals with, and for better or for worse. And it just brings me to the next. And I'll leave the topic after this. Is the idea that all aliens are positive. And there are several researchers out there and many channelers, unfortunately, that are trying to say that every single ET is positive. And I can't help but my gut to tell me that if there is positive and negative on everything on this planet, why wouldn't there be positive and negative on otherworldly entities? And that's not to say that, all Anunnaki are evil, or all Greys are evil, or all reptilian are evil. I am a believer that there are people who, change their mind, that don't want to follow that particular agenda and become positive. And so therefore, if there are people who leave the Illuminati or leave Freemasonry to do something positive, like Leo Zagami, a good example, is that there must be entities out there that are going positive. But the reality of it is, for us to believe that every ET is positive is kind of dangerous. Is that fair to say in your experience, Kerry, or have you seen otherwise?
Well, I mean, I think my interview or our interview with Stephen Greer is pretty well known at this point, in which we contest his very clear statement on stage in Barcelona, in which he said that all ETs are positive. There's an infatuation with technology that humans have, in which they think that because a race of beings has a higher technology, they therefore are also a higher spiritual entity, and actually the two don't go together at all. They don't necessarily follow from one to the other, and witness modern man with all his tech and the sort of injustice that is still being done around the planet to other beings, plants, animals, and humans. So all I would say is that, by no means are all ETs positive. And I think the raw material, the RA material, that is some of the best channeled information on the web and out there in general, is very instructional in this way. And the way they refer to it, this group, is they refer to what they call service to self or service to others, and that there is basically a division, and maybe you want to say a percentage of what any entity will follow along those lines. And so the distinguishing characteristic you need to ask yourself in regard to other beings is whether or not they are indeed more service to self than service to others. In other words, what their agenda is, and what their agenda is in visiting the planet, what their agenda is in dealing with us on any level, and in fact in interfering with our lives. I have a friend who also is quite a fan of Marshall B. and Summers, who has written a book about this and talks about how the various races come here with an agenda, and that people do not understand that they also have the intelligence to cloak their agenda. So in other words, just as the Illuminati will sell you toothpaste, that has fluoride in it with, a beautiful woman and a sparkling smile.
Right.
In other words, they will sell you anything to get you to buy it. What do you think ETs do? You need to take that to a whole nother level and understand that service to self ETs are brilliant experts in this deception. And therefore that is going on this planet constantly. And that goes for also disembodied entities. In other words, people think they see Jesus, people think they see, beautiful angels, et cetera, et cetera. It's just, you need to understand that there's a tremendous amount of deception going on, and that entities that have the ability to shapeshift into other beings, of course lots of grays manifest as blonde, Nordics or so-called Pleiadians. Of course they do. Why do they do this? Because that's who you buy. That's the best salesman they have, that body that you will believe because they look a certain way, and you've been conditioned to believe that person's going to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. The trouble is, you might say, how do you discern if there is such deception out there, a positive being or from a truly negative being? And in that, what I would say is you look at how much they want to impact your sovereignty, because that's where the bottom line of the game ends and begins. It's to do with how much they want to interfere with your personal freedom and your sense of sovereignty to go your own way and to create your own reality, or co-create it with others. So this is where you need to be particularly discerning. And it's just like, someone who sells you candy or sells you, Coke or right. Gives you a drug with a smile on their face, trying to convince you or persuade you that this is going to be good for you.
Exactly.
And it's all a learning experience. I mean, the point of 3D, the point of having this yin and yang, this positive and negative, is to increase self-knowledge. It's to increase your spiritual abilities and your dimensions and your ability to expand into and grow and carry that forward and back to the source. In essence, it's source learning through you and experiencing through you and bringing truth back through you. So there's a mission to be had there.
Absolutely, and experiences to be learned.
Yeah.
And they get bigger and bigger.
Somebody was posting on the chat room, and I just wanted to bring this up ever so quickly. Is there any updates on Dutch Sense?
He has gotten in touch with me several days ago, but this morning, I'm getting all kinds of messages that he's now been taken off of YouTube, and so I have to believe that may be true. I haven't had time to look and check. I did post it on my blog. I have gotten multiple information regarding that, but I haven't heard from him about this particular episode, so I don't know what's going on. I do know that he's being hugely messed with and interfered with on various levels. I do know that, that he has apologized for not being able to sort of keep our promised update, the time that we were going to come forward and do an update, which was last Thursday. He was inundated, and he was, let's say, pressure was brought to bear and has been brought to bear on him. You can appreciate that any time a person like him comes forward and tells the truth. And then, I have to say the fact that I was able to get an interview with him, and if you listen to the interview, you will hear a tremendous amount of openness in this man's willingness to understand and listen and consider all points of view about the possibilities of what's really being put down in this matrix. You have to understand with his huge following that he becomes a target. And just as Camelot has been a target, he is becoming a target. This is the kind of thing that goes on. Hopefully he's going to make it through and be stronger for it. Yeah. But, yes, he's going through a trial by fire. I don't know what YouTube is up to right now. I don't know why they've taken him down. I don't know what their excuse is.
Huh.
Your interview, Kerry, your interview with him, is that on YouTube or is it audio?
Yes, it is on YouTube. It's available at my website, and all you have to do is, I'm what's called a director on YouTube, so I have a director's channel. I became a director on YouTube very early on, so I have one of the original directors' channels. What that allows me to do is upload videos of any length, basically. Yeah. And I pretty much I'm very, very careful of my YouTube channel in that I try very hard not to ever violate copyright. But yes, go to projectcamelot.org on the front page. You can't miss it. On one hand, you've got my Michael Tellinger Adam's Calendar documentary that I highly recommend, and on the right-hand side, you've got my interview with Dutch Sense. It goes on for quite a long time. It was originally done on live stream. Like I said, they shut down the channel right after that. I did download it and get it over to YouTube very quickly, so it is on my channel.
Well, I'm looking at it now.
I noticed that I can't help but notice that over the past several weeks, you guys have been having, I guess, hacking problems. Has that started to clear up, or have you put up the firewalls, and how's that going?
Well, what happened was when we were doing the Project Camelot roundtable conferences, right before every conference, they hit us really hard. And that's the intel agencies who overload servers with multiple hits and try to take down your server and doing what's called a DOS attack. We've had that happen all the time during or right before our Camelot roundtable. What that tells you, and the same thing with the Dutch Sense situation, is when we get together, especially the people who are, if you want to term it, leaders in terms of audience share, and that means Project Camelot, Dutch Sense, and various other alternative sort of angled media outlets that are not following the mainstream paradigm, when we get together and compare notes, we are very, very powerful. And the powers that be know this, and we become a huge threat. And so what they do is they basically attack us. Intelligence agents have, nothing better to do than to infiltrate our forums, cause dissension among members, create all kinds of huge fights and bad mouthing. We have legions of people out there that have nothing better to do with themselves than badmouth Camelot. And we have all kinds of lies being spread in various websites. I'm not going to name them. Where they actually are, that's what they do with themselves. They sit around bad-mouthing us or other people like us who are just doing good work, who are just trying to get the truth out. These are negatively oriented entities.
Yeah. We can relate, Kerry. we just had a problem with a false anonymous group as well, similar to what you went through. So we can relate, unfortunately. But speaking of being around or speaking with or bringing together leaders in the alternative media and or the consciousness media, we have about 20 minutes left, so I really wanted to talk a little bit more about the Awake and Aware conference coming up. You have, well, first of all, you're going to be there. Bill Ryan's going to be there with you. Our dear friend Miriam Delicato is going to be there. I heard she's bringing the Dogon with her as well. Is that still going on?
That's correct, absolutely. And
wonderful.
I've met them, and they're wonderful individuals, and I'm very happy. And we did an interview with them on live stream.
Yes.
It's available on YouTube. What I do is I do my interview on live stream, and then I switch it over to YouTube very quickly, because live stream requires you, if you don't pay for the channel, either you have to pay them a lot of money or you have to have commercials. Neither of one I care to do at this time. So I switch everything over to YouTube as soon as I can. So we do have an interview with the Dogon. Goes on. It was what we call a Project Camelot roundtable with them. This was a free event that was sort of a donation only event in which people were hopefully willing to donate something to the cause, which is the Dogon are coming forward at this time, at this crucial time on the planet, to begin to talk to all the indigenous people around the planet and to unite the tribes, to unite the rainbow tribes, as we call them, which includes indigos and includes groups like us and peoples around the world of all colors. And basically get the indigenous people, such as the Hopi, and this is a mission that Miriam Delicato has been working on. This is what she's dedicated her life to doing, is to bring these indigenous peoples forward, to get them to speak to the world, to share the knowledge that they have. So two of the Dogon have been given the mission by one of their tribal leaders to come forward and to begin talking to the public, and they connected with Miriam first and then with me, and we were able to do this live broadcast, which is one of the first of its kind, I believe. So they are going to be at my Awake and Aware conference. It's very likely we'll have some Hopi there, even behind the scenes, if not more obvious.
Wonderful.
We are going to have some wonderful speakers. Duncan O'Finian, as I mentioned, and a mystery guest. We've got Rich Dolan, who's a Rhodes Scholar finalist, who wrote two huge volumes, Volume 1 and Volume 2 of UFOs in the National Security State. A brilliant history of not only the ET and UFO sort of sightings around the world, but an analysis in terms of what's going down in mainly the United States, and how the national security state has become an entity unto itself, almost a breakaway society that involves the secret space program, among other things. We've got Nassim Harriman, as I mentioned, Bob Dean, who is considered in many ways a one-man disclosure project.
Yeah. He is.
A witness as to the ET reality. He was former Command Sergeant Major and worked at SHAPE headquarters in Europe during the World War II. He's part of an old boys network, and he has information that he has never shared. He's always playing it very close to the chest, so to speak, but nonetheless, he's been interviewed by Camelot at least 4 times, I think. And I encourage you to watch every single video because he's really a stellar witness. And his wife, Marcia Schaefer, who is also a very wonderful, aware individual in her own right, and has written a book called something like Travels of an Interdimensional Anthropologist.
Oh, I like that title.
Title a bit skewed, but it's something like that. She has a website called BeyondZebra.com, I believe it is, and she is a contactee, and she also has sort of, I guess you might say, is something of a channeler, although she may object to that word. She deals with top executives around the world who are having ET interactions of various kinds, and she helps them to wrap that into their work and to enhance their work as a result of that interaction, and basically is trying to work on building the new paradigm that is beginning to emerge as we speak, that we are all creating as we go.
Yeah.
In the sort of ashes of destruction that we are now going through. We are going through a transition time, but we will come out the other side, and I believe ultimately be better for it. Yeah. So Marcia Schaefer, highly recommended. Richard C. Hoagland is going to be giving, as I said, an update on Elenin and other bodies in our solar system that are now impacting our reality in various ways. In his view, his theories to do with consciousness, why these so-called controlled craft are entering our reality at this time, where they're coming from, what their mission is, etc. That will be a fascinating lecture and not to be missed. We've got Miriam Delicato, as has been mentioned, and David Wilcock, who's just released his book, again, Source Field Investigations. Myself and Bill Ryan will be on stage together. Sean David Morton, who is a brilliant psychic, has been right on a number of hits, was on Coast to Coast on Art Bell time and time again. You can go back through the annals of Coast to Coast and listen to many of his predictions, some of which have definitely come true. He's a walking encyclopedia, and in my view, he's an individual to be treasured because of his depth of knowledge, and he will be sharing also he has a number of contacts in the sort of undercover black intel agencies and so on. So he will be sharing that. We've got Graham Hancock, who is really an amazing individual. He's an elder statesman of the whole ancient archaeology sort of area, and then he made a recent transition into the area of consciousness. Oh. Now he is writing novels about consciousness, about the war between the dark and the light here on planet Earth. He's choosing fiction in which to talk about that, but he has many, many very valuable volumes to do with undersea exploration, revealing the signs of Atlantis in various places around the globe, as well as basically sort of pioneer in the area of ancient archaeology and revealing the true archaeology of the hidden archaeology of our planet that is being hidden from the masses. Graham Hancock is a stellar individual, and in many ways he is if you would say, in some ways he embodies the theme of the conference, which is how a unified global consciousness is the real game changer. And that is the theme of the conference. So what we do is we are bringing authentic Camelot witnesses who will be revealing the truth behind the matrix, and then we bring the individuals who are talking about how consciousness changes the world around us, and bringing those two sides together. And again, Graham Hancock is a perfect embodiment of both those themes.
Yeah, he really is amazing. I've been following him for years, and What a lineup you have is all I can say. As if you weren't enough, you have all these other people with you.
Amazing.
So I forgot to mention that Cynthia Crawford will be doing a contactee workshop, believe it or not, during the dinner hour, simply because we have no other time for such things to go on. And she is a real trooper, and she's an alien-human hybrid, self-acknowledged, and been involved in some genetic engineering experiments when she was young. And Jordan Maxwell, who is another walking encyclopedia of information, a specialist in terms of symbolism, the Illuminati agenda, and what's really going on the planet. I have to encourage everyone who is a Camelot fan out there to watch my interview with Jordan Maxwell. And that took place at David Wilcox, with David in attendance asking a few questions, as well as Bill Ryan, my partner in Camelot. Jordan Maxwell, that interview is a real stellar interview in my view, because it reveals not only some of his more historical work, but also his own encounter experiences, as well as his take on what's coming down now and in the future here on the planet. It is a cautionary tale. It's not all sweetness and light. That is not how Jordan comes across, but he is really a walking encyclopedia. He will be he will be at our conference. He will have his own table, sort of selling his DVDs and his books, but he will also be in and among the crowd. He's a joy to have around. I wish we had more time. We would have had more of our witnesses take the stage. Jordan will be participating in the panel discussion on the Saturday night as well.
Oh, I wish I could go.
Oh, and just for those of us that can't make it this year, is there any chance of a 2012 Awake and Aware? Or are you not there yet?
Speak the words, because the amount of work that goes into this is just overwhelming. And I have to also credit my team, Tommy Hansen and Zoe Quinn, who is my web team, who has stuck with me over the last 2 or 3 years and really made Camelot kept Camelot on the map, so to speak, and expanded us in the ways that we needed to grow. And I want to thank Myra Jackson, who is also my organizer, who is helping put this team together. We've got a brilliant marketing wizard named Christopher, and other people who are helping me, such as Mary Jane Banks, and other wonderful, wonderful people. And some of whom I don't even know if they want me to say their names on the air. Some people don't want to be so publicly associated with Camelot because there's a certain liability that goes along with that. But I do want to give a plug here to say that Myra Jackson will be speaking at the Alchemy Conference that is the weekend before our conference in Long Beach. So she's a writer and a speaker in her own right, but she's also working to organize our conference and to get us off the ground. So like I said, we're going to have 2 aspects. One is the live in-person aspect that is really will be a joy, and also because of the whistleblowers that we're flying in internationally, because people have donated money to make this possible. And we're going to have some stellar Camelot whistleblowers in attendance, people you can meet and talk to, and there will be information exchanged in all aspects. But if you aren't able to be there in person, we will be doing, as I said, the live streaming. That will be rolled out on our Awake and Aware 2011.com website, which is where you go to register to buy tickets. You will be able to ultimately register and buy tickets also for the live streaming that will take place, obviously live, and then we will have a post-conference stream that also will be available, as well as DVDs. So we're going all out, and we think this will be sort of a wonderful hurrah for Camelot and for these wonderful speakers and for where we are on the planet at this really critical juncture.
Absolutely. It reminds me of like a consciousness Woodstock. It's going to be an event. I mean, a global event. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Kerry, you must be really proud of yourself for doing all this.
And tired.
No. I have to say that, I'm very happy to be among a group of people that are working for the awakening of consciousness all around the globe. And, I consider myself on a team member of many, many wonderful beings that are here, like yourselves, trying to bring awareness to the planet. And that's what it's all about.
Hear, hear. Absolutely, absolutely. We still actually got about 4 minutes left, and I was just wondering, Kerry, because we have one thing in common, that we both were lucky enough to interview the Dogon. We had them here probably about 2 weeks after you had them on live stream, and I just can't help but wonder, for someone like yourself and for someone like us, that what's it going to mean when all of these indigenous cultures speak? What's your feeling when everyone starts coming out and talking? Is it just going to be the consciousness people listening, or do you think it'll actually make an impact?
Well, there's an interesting trajectory happening. Camelot, I am going to say that we did a pilot for True TV that we're not supposed to talk about, that they are now putting on a shelf, and we're waiting to see if they're going to have the guts to release it. It was based on the work of Camelot, so you can reach your own conclusions about that. But I do want to say that we're expanding the envelope every day, and we're trying to move into the celebrity community. We're working with getting indigenous tribes to come forward. Basically, this is about this planet waking up, recognizing who we are, what we're doing here, and changing the paradigm. And we need everyone to get involved. So when you say, what does it mean when indigenous people come forward? It means that they are going to reach the people that aren't listening right now to Camelot, but will listen, for example, to the Hopi that are highly respected around the globe, to the Dogon, who have secret knowledge from Sirius and other places possibly, and certainly safeguarded some of the Egyptian occult knowledge as well. Illuminati are also based on the Egyptian occult knowledge, so comes with a double-edged sword in that regard. There are many peoples that have sort of been hidden, tribes that have been hidden, that have their own sources of knowledge. I mean, the fact is, each and every one of us have a gift of consciousness, have a gift of awareness, and special gifts that we bring with us in our incarnation. We give those gifts to the world. All we want to do is bring those people forward. We want to change the paradigm. We don't want children to be starving. We don't want to have children abducted and taken to other planets against their will. We don't want them taken underground against their will. We want people to be able to determine their own life path. We would like to do away with war. We would like to have a planet of peace, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And what a wonderful wrap up. Thank you, Kerry, very, very much. I think those were just beautiful words for us to end this particular discussion on. But I just wanted to let everybody know as well that Project Camelot, like the GIC, relies on your donations. So please, by all means, help Kerry out. Go to projectcamelot.org. Is there somewhere in particular they can go to on the webpage to contribute?
Well, yes, we have a donate button, and we also have a support us link where you can find the donate information. I would encourage people to buy a ticket to either live stream or to, the live streaming of the event, awakenaware2011.com. That's a way to support our work. I am going hugely into debt in order to put this conference on. So we are. I think the number of tickets sold is somewhere around 340. We need to break above. We have room for about 650, 700 people. We're letting in about 50 people at least free, as well as whistleblowers. We hope we can even overflow the room. We need to sell out in order for me to finance and to pay the ticket, the prices of the speaker fees, etc. It's a huge undertaking. I hope you can appreciate the risk we're taking, but we wanted to do it. And I will say, I don't know if I'm going over your limit here, but I will say that I attended a conference that actually spurred me to do a second Awake and Aware conference in which I saw some of the speakers going on stage and lying to the public. And I said right then and there that I would put on a Camelot conference where the speakers will tell the truth and not. And so that's exactly what's going to happen.
And that's the way to do it, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Kerry. You've given us so much to ponder, to think about, and I would just love everyone to please support Kerry's work. Her work has been very inspirational to all of us at the Global Illumination Council. Yeah. And I think that if it wasn't for her being people like Kerry, and maybe Kerry as the leader, creating the path for us to start doing the work that we're doing, there wouldn't be people like us doing what we do. So we want to thank you very much, Kerry. And also, I was wondering, Kerry, could you tell us, do you know the price of the live stream ticket? Because I'm going to buy one.
Okay, well, the way it's going to be rolled out is that the live stream will be probably $50 a day for the full, it's really a day and a night, like Saturday and Sunday. Friday night we will live stream from 6:30 till 12 midnight. That will be a little less. Basically, if you go into a group screening in your neighborhood and you band together with, like, say, 10 or more people, even in somebody's living room, and the person collects, they will basically be able to sell the stream for half price. Oh. So if you view it by yourself, it will cost $50 a day. If you view it in a group setting, it will be $25 a day. Half of that, the income will go to the person putting on the event, and assuming, relying completely on their own integrity and their desire to help Camelot, half of it will go to Camelot. Nice. What we are going to do for the people putting on these events around the world is we will advertise for you for free. So in essence, let's say you're in Paris and you want to put on an event, you will be able to have a pin, that's on the world map that is on the website that we're creating, and basically people will be able to, all over Paris, be able to come to your event, be able to buy a ticket to your event for half price, and it's going to allow you to have networking in your locations with like-minded people, which is so valuable. So I'm hoping this will take off, and I think it's going to be a great grassroots effort.
It's a great concept, Kerry, and it's perfect. I mean, it really is the way to do it. It brings people together, and at the same time gives everybody the opportunity to participate. That for those that cannot make it, we're literally on web only time. I'm being told that we're off the air, but they're allowing us to record this, and it will show up on the archive. So we're going to wrap things up, but however, I wanted to make sure it was okay with you, Kerry, if we transfer this interview onto a YouTube video. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll go ahead and send you the link to that when we get it. For those of you listening, whoever's left, I think we got about 100 and something people left listening. I want to let you know that next week we have Brian Forster will be joining us. He basically does these amazing tours in Peru. And he was just recently showcased on Ancient Aliens. I believe it was like 3 or 4 days ago. But fresh from Ancient Aliens, he's going to come here on the Just Bernard Show, and he's going to be talking with us next Monday. With that, I got to put a shout-out to my buddy Gary Evans, and thank you, Gary. And we know who he is, right, Gary? I want to thank you, Gary, at infiniteconnections.com. He's been working with GIC for the last couple of weeks, and he has basically relieved a lot of stress for me and is going to be handling a lot of our bookings. So if you're liking the guests, send a big shout-out to Gary Evans at infiniteconnections.com because he's kind of given the reins over to him, and he's doing a great job. So thank you again very, very much, Gary. Everybody, again, this is Dr. Bernard Alvarez here with Yvonne Weitz and Reverend Trevor Knott. You've just listened to Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot, and please, by all means, go support her. Buy a ticket to Awaken Aware if you can, and if not, you can always watch the live stream. This is Bernard Alvarez, looking forward to speaking to you all next week. Please don't forget this Friday. We have a huge show coming on The Truth Denied with Roxy Lopez. She has gotten together literal survivors of the Fort Benning incident. And for those of you that don't know, it was when a military installation was literally abducted for a few minutes. I really don't know the details, so if I'm a little bit wrong, forgive me, but she has she's bringing together 3 of the survivors this Friday. For the first time, they're going to speak about their experiences, and some of them are still in service. So it's a very big deal for someone who's still in the service to speak about this, and we are really looking forward to that. Remember, again, that's this Friday, The Truth Denied with Roxy Lopez, here on GIC Radio. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week. We love you very, very much, and please remember to donate to Project Camelot and donate to GIC, because we cannot do this work without you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful week.